Princess Liara walked slowly through the gardens of Aurelia's floating palace, her fingers lightly brushing the glowing petals of alien flowers. The wind carried soft hums of light, and the trees' leaves shimmered in colors no human eye had ever seen. The palace, made of crystal and silver, floated above the clouds, held in the air by technology older than memory. Liara had walked these gardens 1,000 times, but today something felt different. Her instincts, sharp and trained since birth, told her that change was coming. She paused by a fountain that reflected the twin moons of Aurelia. The water glowed faintly, casting patterns that danced across her pale skin. Liara shivered and glanced around. The gardens were usually empty at this hour, a quiet space for reflection. But today, something, or someone, was there. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the garden, half hidden behind the luminous trees. Liara's heart skipped. No human had been on Aurelia for centuries. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and curious in ways that her people could not understand. She stepped back instinctively, her voice calm but firm. "Who are you?" The figure stepped forward. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that gleamed faintly under Aurelia's light. His eyes were deep brown and human, filled with intelligence and caution. "Captain Eli Drake," he said simply, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I come in peace." "I mean no harm." Liara studied him carefully. Every instinct in her body warned her that humans were not to be trusted. But something about his presence was different. There was a confidence in him, a quiet strength that made her shiver unexpectedly. She had not felt this before. The way he looked at her was not fear, not desire, not disrespect. It was curiosity, pure curiosity, human and honest. "Why do you look at me like that, human?" she asked finally, her voice soft but firm. She took another step back, unsure whether to summon her guards. Eli smiled faintly, though it did not reach his eyes. "Because I have never seen anyone like you," he replied. "I've traveled across the stars, visited dozens of planets, but you are different." Liara frowned. Different? She had been called beautiful, intelligent, brave. But different? That was a word she had never heard in this context. And yet it stirred something in her, a part of her that she had kept hidden, beneath the armor of duty and expectation. "You are on Aurelia without permission," she said, trying to keep her composure. "This is the royal domain. Why are you here?" Eli's expression remained calm. "There was an accident during a diplomatic mission. My ship was damaged. I did not intend to come here. I seek help, nothing more." Liara's eyes narrowed. Humans were clever and unpredictable. His words could be true or a trick. But she sensed something genuine in him. He spoke with honesty that was rare among visitors to her planet. "Come," she said finally, motioning toward the palace. "But do not think this means I trust you. One wrong move and you will regret it." Eli inclined his head, silently agreeing. He followed her across the marble bridges that connected the floating palace towers. Liara kept her distance, observing him carefully. Every step he took was cautious but confident. He adapted to Aurelia's shifting gravity without hesitation, a skill few of her people could master at such speed. As they entered the palace, Liara's advisors rushed to meet her. "Princess, who is this human?" one demanded. His voice was sharp, filled with suspicion. "He is Captain Eli Drake," Liara replied, keeping her tone measured. "He comes with no malice." "For now," the advisors murmured among themselves. Humans had always been unpredictable. Some were brilliant, yes, but many were reckless, dangerous, or manipulative. Trusting one was a risk. But Liara could not ignore the spark she had felt when she first saw him, the same spark that made her shiver. Again and again, as she watched him move with calm confidence. They reached the royal chamber, a room with walls of liquid crystal that reflected Aurelia's moons and the floating clouds outside. Liara gestured for him to sit. "Explain everything," she said. "Every detail of how you came to be here." Eli nodded. "I will, but I need your trust, Princess." Just for a moment, Liara considered him. Trust was a dangerous thing, but curiosity gnawed at her. She had rules, traditions, and a duty to her people. But she also had instincts. Instincts that told her this human might teach her something she had never known. Something powerful and unexpected. For the first time in her life, Liara allowed herself to lean forward slightly, eyes locked on Eli's. Her shiver returned, not of fear but of anticipation. Something had begun. something neither of them fully understood. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this encounter, brief as it might be, would change Aurelia forever. The hum of the palace lights, the whisper of the gardens, and the glowing moons outside all seemed to fade as Liara and Eli studied each other. In that moment, two worlds collided, not in war, but in curiosity and perhaps the promise of something extraordinary. Liara led Eli through the palace halls, her steps echoing on polished crystal floors. The walls glowed softly, shifting colors with the passing light of Aurelia's moons. He followed closely but did not rush, matching her pace. Every corner of the palace seemed alive, filled with floating lights and delicate machines that hummed quietly. Eli's eyes widened with wonder, but he kept his expression calm. He knew showing too much surprise might seem disrespectful. "You must know," Liara said, her tone measured, "that Aurelians value control, order, and tradition above all. You are far from your human world, and here mistakes can be dangerous." Eli nodded. "I understand," he said, "but I'm not here to cause trouble. I only want to help and learn." Liara raised an eyebrow. "Learn?" she asked, curiosity hiding behind her caution. "Humans think they can learn everything quickly. Do you really believe you can understand our ways in a few hours?" "I don't know everything," Eli admitted, "but I can observe. I can adapt. That is what humans do. We try to understand before we act." Liara studied him, noticing the honesty in his voice. Humans were often reckless, yet Eli seemed calm, almost patient. That alone was unusual. She had expected arrogance or fear, but neither was there. He looked at her as if she were not a princess to be feared or obeyed, but a person to understand. That made her shiver again. They reached a hall where holographic maps of Aurelia floated in midair, showing cities, forests, and the delicate energy fields that kept the floating islands aloft. Liara gestured toward the display. "This is my world," she said. "Our people have lived here for thousands of years. We protect it fiercely. You must know that one wrong move could start a war." Eli studied the maps with interest. "It is beautiful," he said softly, "and fragile. I see why your people guard it so carefully." Liara frowned. "Fragile?" She did not often hear her world described that way. Aurelians were strong, wise, and technologically advanced. They did not see themselves as fragile. But perhaps, she thought, humans see the world differently. They do not take strength for granted. "Not fragile in spirit," Eli clarified quickly. "Fragile in balance. One small change, and the harmony you have built could be disrupted. But you are wise and strong, and your people, they are capable." Liara felt a small flicker of pride mixed with surprise. He spoke with respect without flattery, and it unsettled her in a curious way. She was not used to being seen simply as herself, not just as a princess or a symbol. "Very well," she said finally. "You may see more of the palace. But you must follow my rules." Eli inclined his head. "Of course." Over the next hours, Liara guided him through the palace. She showed him the council chambers, the library of energy crystals, and the private quarters of the royal family. Eli asked questions, careful not to offend. He asked about their history, their customs, and their technology. Liara answered, sometimes with patience, sometimes with gentle teasing when his human logic seemed to clash with Aurelia's intuition. At one point, he picked up a crystal that contained a holographic map. "How does this work?" he asked. Liara laughed lightly. "It stores light and memory. The maps are alive in a way. They react to knowledge and to who is observing them. Most humans cannot read them correctly." Eli studied it carefully, then nodded. "I think I understand. You must sense patterns, not just data." Liara's eyes widened slightly. "You understand more than I thought." Her tone was a mixture of admiration and caution. Humans were clever, yes, but to see one pick up nuances like this so quickly was rare. As they walked through the palace corridors, they came across a group of Aurelians in ceremonial robes. They stopped and bowed deeply to Liara, murmuring respectful greetings. Eli observed silently. "You see that?" Liara asked. "Humans do not bow to authority as we do. They often challenge it. Sometimes it is clever. Sometimes it is reckless. You must be careful." "I can adapt," Eli said simply. "I watch, I learn. I do not assume that your ways are the same as mine." Liara shivered again at the calm confidence in his voice. It was not defiance nor arrogance. It was certainty in his own abilities while respecting hers. She had never met a human quite like this. For a moment they stopped on a balcony overlooking the floating city. Lights twinkled below, and the wind carried the soft hum of distant engines. Eli looked out at the horizon, then at Liara. "Your world is amazing," he said. "And you are amazing." Liara felt a sudden flush. Humans did not usually speak so openly. She had been trained to expect careful flattery, to expect calculated words. But Eli's words felt real, and that made her shiver once more. Not with fear, but with something else she could not name. "Do not let flattery distract you," she said quickly, turning away, hiding her reaction. "There is still much you do not understand." "I know," Eli said, smiling faintly, "and I hope to learn it all, with your guidance." Liara considered him, wondering how much of the human's boldness was natural and how much was carefully measured. She could not be sure. But one thing was certain: he was unlike any human or any being she had ever met. And in that she felt the stirrings of curiosity and challenge. The first step toward something that might change everything. The sun of Aurelia dipped behind the floating islands, casting long shadows across the palace. Liara turned back toward the halls, her mind full of thoughts she did not fully understand. Eli followed silently, and for the first time in her life she wondered what it might mean to see the world through human eyes. The sun had barely risen over Aurelia when alarms echoed through the palace. Red lights flashed, and the soft hum of the floating city was replaced by the urgent clanging of emergency signals. Liara's heart tightened. Something was wrong. She hurried to the central control chamber, with Eli following closely behind. "What is happening?" she demanded as she entered the chamber. Her advisors were already gathered, their faces pale with concern. "Princess," one of them said quickly, "a criminal syndicate from the neighboring systems is attacking. They seek the energy crystals that power our floating islands. They have ships approaching from multiple directions." Liara's eyes widened. Energy crystals were the lifeblood of Aurelia. Without them, the cities would fall from the sky. Panic rippled through the room, but Eli remained calm. He moved to a holographic map, studying the incoming fleet. "How many ships?" he asked, his voice steady. "Dozens," one advisor replied. "They are heavily armed." Eli's eyes narrowed. "Then we cannot meet them head-on. We need strategy, not force." Liara looked at him, surprised. Humans were often impulsive in battles, relying on strength and speed. But Eli's approach was different. He examined the map, tracing paths and patterns, noting weak points in the enemy formation. "You want to use the city's defenses in a new way?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," he said. "Your people are brilliant but predictable. If we combine human tactics with Aurelian technology, we can defend without risking everything." Liara hesitated. Trusting a human in battle was risky. But something in Eli's confidence, in the calm precision of his voice, made her believe in him. "Very well," she said. "Show me." Eli moved quickly, directing guards and technicians. He positioned energy shields to cover the city's most vulnerable points, and suggested tactical diversions to split the enemy fleet. Liara watched in amazement. Humans had a strange way of seeing possibilities that others did not. While Aurelians relied on precision and ritual, Eli relied on flexibility and creativity. It was dangerous, but it could work. The first wave of enemy ships appeared in the sky, sleek and dark against Aurelia's twin suns. Liara's guards prepared their energy cannons, and the floating platforms hummed as defensive systems powered up. The air was tense, electric with fear and anticipation. Eli gave quiet instructions, pointing to positions and weak points. "Use the north shield to funnel them into the canyon," he said. "Then the east turbines can push them back." "Timing is everything." Liara nodded, giving orders with him. The first ships moved as predicted, and the city's defenses responded perfectly. Energy beams shot through the sky, intercepting attackers. Some ships were destroyed, others forced off course. The battle was intense, and Liara could feel the strain in her body. But Eli remained calm, directing forces with steady hands and sharp mind. During a pause in the attack, Liara noticed something that made her shiver. Not fear this time, but admiration. Eli moved among the guards, helping them adjust their weapons, offering advice without arrogance. He treated them as capable partners, not subordinates, and they responded with respect and trust. Aurelians were not used to such leadership from a human. "You are not like other humans," Liara said quietly as they watched another wave approach. "I am learning from the best," he replied, eyes still scanning the map. "And your people are incredible. I have seen worlds fall, Liara, but I have never seen one defended with such intelligence and heart. Her heart skipped. Humans often flattered, but Eli's words were different. They carried truth, observation, and respect. She found herself shivering again, a strange feeling of connection and curiosity twisting inside her. The battle raged on for hours. Enemy ships adapted, but so did Liara and Eli. Each wave tested their planning, and each time human ingenuity combined with Aurelian technology turned the tide. Civilians watched from the floating platforms, marveling at how their princess and the human worked side by side, protecting their home. At one point, an enemy ship broke through the north shield and headed straight for a crowded platform. Liara's guards hesitated, unsure of what to do. Eli acted immediately. "Focus the energy beams together. Fire at once," he shouted. The shield flared, beams converged, and the ship exploded before reaching the civilians. Liara stared in disbelief. Humans had a way of acting quickly, decisively when moments mattered most. She realized that without Eli, her city might have fallen. As the sun began to set, the last enemy ships retreated. Aurelia was safe, but the battle had left the city scarred. Bridges swayed, energy grids hummed weakly, and floating gardens were damaged. Liara turned to Eli, who stood among the guards, calm despite exhaustion. "You were remarkable," she said softly. "Your human ways, they saved us today." Eli shrugged modestly. "We saved each other. You trusted me, Liara. That made all the difference." For the first time, Liara allowed herself a small smile. She had seen humans as reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous. But this human, this Captain Eli Drake, had shown her courage, intelligence, and something more. A quiet, unshakable trust in the value of life and thought. The palace lights glowed warmly as they walked back through the damaged halls. Civilians cheered quietly from the platforms, and Aurelians whispered to each other about the strange human who had changed the outcome of the battle. Liara shivered again, not from fear, not from cold, but from the realization that the galaxy had just shown her a new possibility. A human, standing not as an outsider but as a partner, perhaps even a friend. "You handled the battle with skill," she said cautiously, her voice soft. "Your ways are strange yet effective. Humans are unpredictable, but you—" She hesitated. "You seem different," Eli smiled faintly. "Different how?" Liara shook her head. "I do not know exactly. Most humans rely on strength, speed, or cunning. You rely on thinking, observing, understanding. You inspire trust rather than fear." "It is unfamiliar to me," Eli nodded. "Humans have many ways to act. I learned long ago that understanding is often stronger than force. Trust is more powerful than intimidation." Liara shivered again at the thought. His words were simple, but they carried weight. She had been trained to expect respect through authority, obedience through fear. Yet here was a human who commanded attention with ideas, not status. It was a strange, almost dangerous feeling, but she could not look away. They reached the private library, a vast chamber filled with holographic archives and crystal-bound records. Liara's advisors had insisted she remain in her chambers after the battle, but she had ignored them. She needed clarity, and Eli's presence, though unexpected, offered it. "I want to show you something," Liara said, approaching a pedestal. She touched a crystal, and a holographic image rose into the air, depicting Aurelia's royal lineage. Generations of rulers appeared, their achievements and struggles displayed in light and color. "Your ancestors were strong," Eli observed, "and clever. They built a world that floats above the clouds." "That is no small feat." Liara's eyes softened. "Yes, but strength has a price. Secrets, sacrifices, burdens that few understand. Even I do not know everything about my family." Eli stepped closer, studying the projections. "Secrets can be dangerous if they are hidden too long, but understanding them can also guide the future." Liara hesitated, then nodded. "There is one secret, one that even my closest advisors do not fully know. It concerns the source of our energy crystals and the choices my ancestors made to protect them. It shaped Aurelia, but it also left vulnerabilities. I have never shared it with anyone." Eli's expression remained calm. "You can trust me, Liara. I am not here to exploit your world. I am here to help, to understand." Her breath caught. She had seen humans as outsiders, capable of brilliance but often reckless. Yet this one, he did not rush, did not demand, did not judge. He only offered calm observation and patience. It made her shiver in a way she did not expect. Very well, she said finally. The crystals are not just power sources. They are linked to the very life of Aurelia. My ancestors created protective barriers. But to maintain them, they had to make difficult choices. Some were hidden, some were dangerous. Eli nodded slowly. I understand. You carry responsibility not just for yourself, but for everyone here? Yes, she said, her voice barely a whisper. And that responsibility is lonely. No one can truly share it. Except perhaps you, human. But even then, I do not know if you can understand the weight. Eli placed a hand gently on the edge of the holographic pedestal. I may not be Aurelian, but I understand duty. Humans have responsibilities too. We have to protect, to lead, to make choices that can cost us everything. I think I can understand more than you believe. Liara studied him. His eyes were steady, honest, and somehow comforting. She had spent her life surrounded by advisors who spoke carefully, filtered every word, and concealed their true thoughts. Eli spoke plainly, yet his words carried insight. She felt a strange relief, as if a burden she had carried alone could be shared, even if only partially. For hours they discussed the secrets of Aurelia, the choices of its rulers, and the challenges of leadership. Eli asked questions, careful, respectful, and insightful. Liara answered cautiously, revealing just enough to test his understanding. Each exchange built trust. Each moment strengthened their connection. As the moons of Aurelia rose high, casting silver light across the crystal floors, Liara realized something she had never admitted. She had begun to see Eli not just as a human outsider, but as a partner in thought and action. His presence challenged her, inspired her, and made her consider possibilities she had never imagined. You are unlike any human I have met, she said softly, shivering again. Not from cold, but from the strange mix of curiosity, admiration, and something deeper she did not yet name. I am learning from you, Eli replied, a faint smile on his face. And perhaps you are learning from me as well. Liara nodded, her heart beating faster than she expected. The library, the city, and even the distant stars outside seemed to fade as they stood together. Two beings from different worlds sharing knowledge, trust, and the beginning of an understanding that could change everything. For the first time in her life, Liara did not feel alone in her duty. She had someone to think with, to trust, and perhaps, though she did not yet dare admit it, to rely on. And for Eli, the human who had crossed countless light years, Aurelia was no longer just a distant planet. It was a world of wonder, of challenge, and of unexpected connection. In the quiet of the library, under the glow of countless stars and crystal light, a fragile but powerful bond began to form, a bond that neither of them fully understood yet, but one that would shape the fate of Aurelia and the humans who now walked its skies. The sky above Aurelia darkened as the enemy fleet returned, larger and more organized than before. Liara stood on the palace balcony, her eyes scanning the approaching ships. The floating cities below glimmered with energy, but the tension in the air was thick. She could feel the fear of her people, even if they tried to hide it. Today, Aurelia's survival would not depend on tradition alone. Eli stood beside her, calm and focused. They've learned from the last encounter, he said. They will try to hit the weak points in your defenses. We need to stay ahead of them. Liara nodded. We must protect every platform, every crystal. If the cities fall, Aurelia falls. Eli tapped the holographic map before them, analyzing the fleet's formation. We'll split their forces. Draw some ships into the canyon where the energy currents can disrupt them. Others will be funneled into the northern passages where your shields are strongest. Timing is everything. Liara's heart raced. Humans had a strange way of seeing solutions that were unexpected but logical. She trusted him now more than she had trusted any advisor. Prepare the guard, she ordered. Follow my lead, but listen to him. The battle began as the enemy ships descended, dark shadows against the glowing skies. Energy beams flashed, shields hummed, and explosions painted streaks of light across the horizon. Liara directed her guards with precision, moving from one control point to another, coordinating with Eli's instructions. Eli's voice cut through the chaos. Concentrate the beams on the Eastern Fleet. Draw them toward the canyon, now! A group of ships veered into the canyon, caught in the powerful currents of the energy grids. They collided with each other and with the terrain, while Aurelia's defenders struck with calculated precision. Liara felt a surge of admiration for the human at her side. His strategies were clever, bold, and most importantly, effective. One enemy ship managed to slip past the defenses, heading toward a civilian platform. Liara's heart jumped. Guards hesitated, unsure how to respond. Eli's eyes narrowed. Now! Use the north turbine to push it off course. Fire the converging beams. The energy beams converged perfectly, striking the ship before it reached the civilians. It exploded in a brilliant flash of light and the platform remained unharmed. Liara stared amazed. Humans acted decisively in moments where hesitation could mean disaster. She had underestimated them before, and now she saw their strength in a new light. Amid the battle, Liara found herself moving alongside Eli, coordinating attacks, adjusting shields, and communicating with her people. Their actions were seamless, a blend of Aurelian precision and human ingenuity. Guards whispered to each other about the unusual teamwork, marveling at how the princess and the human captain worked together as equals. During a brief lull, Eli approached Liara. Your people are amazing, he said quietly. They fight with honor and intelligence, and you inspire them to do more than they thought possible. Liara shivered, not from cold but from a mixture of pride and something deeper. His words were honest, not flattery, and they struck her in a way few had ever done. You are brave, she admitted. Humans are often reckless, but you see what must be done and act. It is rare. The enemy regrouped, launching a second wave faster and more coordinated. Liara and Eli returned to their stations. Eli's eyes scanned the map, noting patterns and weaknesses. This is their final push, he said. We must force them back or they will overwhelm us. Liara's hands moved quickly across controls, activating shields, redirecting energy flows, and coordinating with her fleet. She felt the adrenaline, the fear, and the exhilaration all at once. Eli's calm voice guided her, but the decisions were hers too. Together, they directed the city's defenses, protecting civilians, guiding guards, and striking enemy ships with precision. Minutes felt like hours, but gradually, the enemy fleet began to falter. Ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, and Aurelia's floating platforms remained intact. Liara could hardly believe it. The city was safe not because of her people's power alone, but because of the combination of Aurelian skill and human ingenuity. As the last of the enemy ships vanished into the distance, the palace erupted in cheers. Civilians and guards alike celebrated, but Liara's eyes found Eli. He stood quietly, scanning the skies for any hidden threats. She felt a surge of gratitude and admiration. Without him, the outcome might have been different. You were incredible, she said softly, stepping beside him. Your strategies, your thinking, they saved Aurelia today. Eli shook his head modestly. We saved each other. You trusted me, Liara. That made all the difference. Liara shivered again, a strange mix of pride, relief, and something she could not yet name. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Eli had proven that they could be extraordinary. She realized that courage, intelligence, and trust were not limited to Aurelians. They existed in humans too, in ways that could change the galaxy. The moons rose high above the floating city, casting silver light on the platforms and the palace. Liara looked at the repaired crystal towers glowing softly after the battle. She knew this was only the beginning. The threat might return stronger next time, but Aurelia had allies she had never expected. And beside her stood one human, a captain who had crossed the stars, who had taught her that bravery and intelligence were not limited by species, and that the galaxy held possibilities she had never imagined. For Liara, the shiver returned, not from fear but from the knowledge that the world was changing, and she was part of something bigger than herself, something daring, uncertain and extraordinary. The city of Aurelia was calm now, though the echoes of battle still lingered in the air. Liara walked through the repaired halls of the palace, her thoughts heavy. The enemy fleet had retreated, but she knew the danger had not disappeared. She needed to strengthen alliances, prepare for future threats, and ensure her people remained safe. Beside her, Eli moved easily, observing the repairs and offering suggestions, his human perspective blending seamlessly with Aurelian technology. Your people are resilient, Eli said, adjusting a holographic control. Even after such a devastating attack, they worked tirelessly to restore what was damaged. Liara nodded, feeling a swell of pride. They must be. Aurelia has survived for centuries because we endure. But endurance alone is not enough. We must adapt, and that is something humans seem to excel at. Eli smiled faintly. Adaptation is what keeps humans alive. We face challenges constantly, some of which seem impossible. We survive by learning quickly and using what we know in new ways. Liara studied him, noticing once again the calm determination in his eyes. Humans were often reckless, yes, but Eli had proven that courage paired with intelligence could achieve extraordinary results. She shivered, not from cold, but from the realization that humans might have qualities her people had underestimated for Sida. Entures. In the palace garden they walked among the glowing plants that shimmered in the twilight. Liara paused by a fountain and looked out at the floating city below. "I have spent my life following rules and traditions," she said softly. "I have never questioned them. Until now. You make me see that there are other ways to think, other ways to act. That can be just as powerful as what my people teach me." Eli's gaze met hers. "Learning is not a weakness, Liara. It is strength. Understanding other ways of thinking, combining them with what you know. That is how the greatest victories happen." She shivered again at the simplicity and truth of his words. Aurelians often overcomplicated decisions, tied down by centuries of custom. Eli's approach was straightforward, effective, and human, and yet she realized it complemented her people's skills perfectly. As they walked further, Liara shared details of her plans to rebuild and strengthen Aurelia. "I want to fortify the energy grids, improve defenses, and create alliances beyond our immediate systems. But diplomacy is not my strength. I need guidance." Eli tilted his head thoughtfully. "Then let me help. Humans have experience negotiating between worlds, between people who do not trust each other. Perhaps we can find common ground and strengthen your position." Liara considered this. Trusting him in battle had saved her people. Could she trust him in diplomacy? Perhaps. His calm thinking and respect for her world suggested he could. She felt a shiver of anticipation. Working together outside of battle might prove even more challenging, yet rewarding. That evening, Liara held a council in the palace chamber, inviting her advisors and Eli to discuss alliances with neighboring systems. Eli spoke carefully, observing Aurelian protocol while offering human perspectives. He suggested compromises, highlighted potential risks, and pointed out opportunities her advisors had overlooked. The council listened, some with skepticism, others with curiosity. Liara watched closely, noting how the combination of human insight and Aurelian wisdom opened doors to solutions they had not considered. She realized that a partnership between species could be stronger than any force alone. After the council, Liara and Eli walked through the quiet halls, their footsteps echoing softly. "You have changed my perspective," she said quietly. "I see humans differently now, not as reckless outsiders but as capable allies, and I find myself curious about you." Eli's expression softened. "And I am curious about you, Liara. You have a strength that is rare even among your own people. I have seen rulers, warriors, and scientists, but few who combine wisdom, courage, and curiosity the way you do." Liara shivered once more. His words were not flattery, not exaggerated praise. They were observation, honest and perceptive. She had never felt seen in this way, not as a princess, not as a leader, but as a person. They reached the balcony overlooking the city, the glowing lights reflecting on the crystal floors. For a moment they stood in silence, watching the calm of Aurelia after chaos. Liara realized that the human at her side had become more than an ally in battle. He had become a partner in thought, a presence that challenged her, inspired her, and made her reconsider what she thought she knew about strength, trust, and courage. "I think Aurelia is ready for the future," Eli said softly. "And perhaps you are too, Liara. You do not have to face it alone." Liara's heart beat faster. The weight of her duty was still there, heavy as ever, but for the first time she did not feel completely alone. With humans like Eli, she could face new challenges, embrace new ideas, and build a future that was stronger and wiser than anything she had imagined. As the twin moons rose high, casting silver light across the palace, Liara felt the shiver again, not of fear, but of anticipation, hope, and the quiet thrill of partnership. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and possibilities, and with Eli by her side, she felt ready to meet them all. Aurelia's survival depended on more than technology. It depended on alliances, strategy, and trust. Eli moved beside her, quietly studying the progress. "Your people are remarkable," he said. Even after chaos, they rebuild with precision and care. Liara nodded. They must be. We have survived countless challenges, but now I see that survival alone is not enough. We need to grow, to prepare, to understand others beyond our own systems. Eli smiled faintly. Humans have experience with that. We often live in uncertain worlds, negotiating, cooperating, and building alliances. Perhaps I can help you extend Aurelia's reach and security. Liara looked at him, considering. He had already proven himself in battle, in strategy, and in understanding. Could she trust him with diplomacy and the future of her people? She felt a shiver, a mixture of excitement and anticipation. Then we will try together, she said softly. The first step was to open communication with neighboring systems. Liara summoned her advisors and Eli to the council chamber. Holographic maps displayed Aurelia and surrounding planets, showing potential allies and threats. Eli suggested approaches, combining human negotiation tactics with Aurelian respect for hierarchy and protocol. He highlighted areas where compromise could prevent conflict and where strategic alliances could strengthen Aurelia's influence. Liara listened carefully, weighing each suggestion. She noticed how her advisors slowly began to see the value in human logic. Skepticism was replaced by curiosity, and by the end of the council, agreements had been drafted for trade, technology sharing, and joint defense strategies. After the council, Liara and Eli walked through the palace gardens, the twin moons reflecting on the shimmering flowers. You have changed more than my city, she said quietly. You have changed how I see possibilities, how I see humans, and how I see myself. Eli looked at her, his expression gentle but firm. And you have shown me a world I could not have imagined. A world of beauty, intelligence, and courage beyond my experience. You have taught me that strength is not just force, but wisdom, patience, and care. Liara shivered again. She had always thought humans were bold, brave, and reckless. But Eli had shown her that courage could be tempered with thought, that intelligence could inspire trust, and that partnership could create outcomes neither species could achieve alone. Days turned into weeks. Eli remained on Aurelia, working alongside Liara, training guards, advising on diplomacy, and sharing knowledge from Earth. Together, they built a system of defenses stronger than any before, and alliances that promised security for years to come. Citizens began to view humans differently, seeing them not as outsiders, but as capable partners in a shared future. One evening, Liara stood on the palace balcony, watching the twin moons rise above the floating cities. The hum of the energy grids was calm and the city glowed softly. Eli joined her silently, his presence steady and comforting. You will return to your world soon, Liara said softly, almost as a statement to herself. Eli shook his head. I have a choice now. You have offered me a role here, as ambassador between humans and Aurelians. I could stay, Liara considered this. It would be wise. Aurelia will need bridges to other worlds, and I would not have you leave, not after what you have done. He smiled faintly, and for the first time Liara allowed herself to relax completely. Then I will stay, to learn, to help, and perhaps to share in the future of this world with you. Liara felt the familiar shiver, warm and different from before. It was not fear or tension, but anticipation, hope, and a quiet joy. Humans had been unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of greatness. Greatness that could change the fate of entire worlds when paired with wisdom, courage, and trust. The city below shimmered, alive with light and movement, and Liara realized that Aurelia's future was no longer uncertain. With allies like Eli, with humans and Aurelians working together, they could face whatever challenges the galaxy might bring. For the first time, Liara allowed herself to imagine not just survival, but prosperity, growth, and even happiness. She and Eli had crossed the boundaries of worlds, species, and expectations, forging a partnership that promised more than defense, it promised hope. As the night deepened, the palace glowed softly in the silver light of the moons. Liara stood beside Eli, watching the floating city hum with life, and knew that Aurelia's story was far from over. But for now there was peace, understanding, and the promise of a future built on trust, courage, and the extraordinary potential of humans. And somewhere deep inside, Liara smiled, shivering once more, not from fear or surprise, but from the quiet thrill of discovery, connection, and the knowledge that the galaxy had endless possibilities waiting for those brave enough to reach for them.